Hi there, my name is Anne, and in this video I'm going to be making more custom pens out of shrink plastic. If you haven't watched my previous video on shrink plastic, or if you just don't know what it is, shrink plastic is a sheet of plastic on which you can draw, and when you put it in the oven, it shrinks, like the name suggests. And it turns into a hard plastic, and you can make loads of stuff out of it, like charms, keychains, bracelets, and pens, which is what I'm gonna do today. I did it in a previous video and I really loved it, and I have loads and loads of ideas for it. If you're wondering how many ideas I have for it, I made an entire document with ideas of shrink plastic things that I can create. So I'm good for a while. So if you don't like these videos, I'm sorry, but as you can see, I'm not quite done with shrink plastic just yet. I really love it. It's so cool, you can customize so many things with it, and I just love it. In my previous video on shrink plastic, I used white shrink plastic to draw on, and that was a little bit more difficult because I had to use a light pad to trace my design onto my shrink plastic because you couldn't see through it. But now I have bought some clear shrink plastic, which means that I can draw my designs straight on it without having to use a light box, which is really handy. So with all those ideas ready, I can start with the first step, which is making my designs onto a scrap piece of paper. So let's get started. I'm starting off drawing the flower from J-Hope's Hope World because it's so goddamn cute, and I'm using a pair of compasses to draw the circle because I can't draw a straight circle for the life of me. And I'm using a ruler to get the right heights for each flower petal because I don't know, it's a lot of symmetry, so I wanted to get it right. And not all my flower petals are the right shape, but I don't really care about that. I think it's just recognizable as it is. And obviously I'm not adding the color in right now, I'm going to add it with the Posca Pens later on. Then I am moving on to the next drawing, which is going to be the TXT logo. And I'm going to draw the very first TXT logo from the very first album because all the other ones are so darn difficult. My god. So the first one it is because I'm not even going to attempt the other ones. And because I didn't really think this through, this is not going to be a pin but a keychain, because the background of this is going to be clear, so I can't really put a pin behind it, so it's going to be a keychain instead. And the next pin is also a circle, because apparently I really like to torture myself with drawing circles, which I can't do, so that's just great. But this is going to be the ball from Toy Story, and this is especially for my sister because she really likes it, so this pin is going to be for my sister. And obviously I can't do a pin video without drawing something for Harry Potter, because I am still kind of obsessed with it. So I'm drawing the logo from the Deadly Hallows, and this is where symmetry is again coming in place. And if someone could explain to me how I need to draw a circle inside of a triangle, that would be great, because I struggled really hard with this. And we're moving on to a pin from one of my favorite Disney movies, which is Big Hero 6, and Baymax is one of my favorite characters of all time. I really love him, he's so adorable. So I'm drawing him next. Drawing him was kind of a challenge, and I really tried to get his proportions right because he is so adorable and I just wanted to get him perfect, and I love him with his little lollipop and stuff, so I needed to draw him. And then we move on to something else that I really love from my childhood, which is Pooh Bear. I still love him so much. I just love Pooh Bear. But I did mess up a little bit. I drew his face a little bit too narrow, so that's why I drew horizontally on the page underneath it, because that way I knew that if I drew it horizontally on the shrink paper, it would turn out a little bit alright and not that narrow. And of course, you can't have Pooh Bear without Piglet, so Piglet is up next. And I'm only drawing their heads because if I were to draw their whole body, it would be a lot more difficult, and I'm doing a lot of pins for me, at least, so I want them to go kind of fast, so that's why I'm only drawing their heads. And I'm not doing the other characters because I don't have the right colors for them. That's the only reason why. I will probably do them in the future, but not right now. And I wonder if you can guess which one this is going to be, because this is also one of my favorite characters again. This video is just me drawing things that I love, so... But can you guess what it is? It is Appa from The Last Airbender. I really love him, he is so adorable, and I had to have him, so that's why I'm drawing him. And now we're moving on to just random little pins. There's not gonna be any more recognizable characters, but they're still kind of adorable. And I'm moving on to a heart with the bright colors inside of it. And I know that's not bright anymore, but you can still celebrate who you are throughout the year, so that's why I'm making it. And after that one comes the first one that I actually tried to do a little bit of drawing and not just recreate something, and that is a little koala holding onto a stick. And the first sheet is full, so now it's time to move on to a next sheet of paper. And I'm starting off immediately with a little dinosaur because I drew a dinosaur in the other video, and now I want another one that says roar. So I don't know, I just really found it adorable, and I really wanted to have this one. And now I'm drawing a bee, which is going way more difficult than I thought it would be. I don't know what happened with his face, it doesn't look like a bee, but I'm going with it. It's a bee. And last but certainly not least, I'm drawing a tiny paint palette. I had to put something art into these pins because I really love art and I really love making it, and I really wanted a tiny palette, so... And here they are, all my tiny sketches. I really love them. So let's move on to actually drawing them onto some shrink paper. And this is the shrink paper that I'm going to use. As you can see, it is quite transparent, so I won't be needing a light box because I can see through it. And you can see the rough texture on it quite clearly. So let's get drawing. And the first one that I'm gonna start with is with the flower from Hope World. It took me a while to figure out which color I was going to use where, but in the end I picked these colors and I thought they would really look nice on it. So let's get started with coloring it in. And I'm starting off with the face, like the yellow part, and I am already realizing that this color is almost out, which is going to be a problem because I will be needing it later on. So that's not great. But because they're Poscas and they're paint pens, they dry kind of slowly, so you really have to figure out which color you're going to do first and in which order you're going to do them, because otherwise you could end up touching wet paint with another Posca pen and they will bleed through each other, which has happened with me before, and that's not exactly ideal. So you really have to figure out in which order you're going to do your Posca pens, or just wait patiently until they're dry, but I don't have that patience, so... Outlining this pin was nerve-wracking because I'm not very good at it, and so I was really nervous doing this, but I think it turned out fine, especially after it shrunk, which you can't see right now, but after it shrunk, it's very noticeable that I messed up on some parts, and I'm just really glad that this pin turned out fine. So the next one is the TXT logo, and as I said, because it's transparent, I can't make this into a pin, but rather a keychain. So I'm just using blue and light yellow for this one, and it's such an easy color scheme, so I'm really happy about that. Then I am moving on to Baymax, and this one was interesting. I put too many layers on this pin. Because as I said in my previous video, if you put too many layers, they can like fluff in the oven and you get like this weird texture on your pin, and that has happened with this pin. It is not that noticeable, so thankfully it turned out fine. But don't be like me and only do 1 or 2 coats of Posca pens, because otherwise they're going to fluff. And at first I didn't want to outline him because I thought that it would ruin the look, because Baymax isn't outlined in the film. But it was quite necessary to make all the whites stand out from each other and not make it one entire blob of white. So I had to outline him, but instead of black I used light gray, and I do think that that worked really, really well for this. And I just love his little red lollipop. And in the sketching I forgot his tiny logo on his chest, but I did put it in once I realized that it was missing, because I looked at it and I realized this is not right. I'm missing something, and it was the tiny logo on his chest. And you would think that for the next pin, the Deadly Hallows one, with just black would be easy. It was not. My circle is so wobbly. Oh my gosh. I don't know how I got such a wobbly circle, but it's wobbly for sure. But I do love this pin. I love all the pins. Why do I keep saying that? And next, for the Toy Story ball, I did realize that my yellow became empty. And that was a problem, because you can definitely see streaks onto the pin, which is not exactly ideal. But yeah, I couldn't really do anything about that, so I just moved on and just had to accept the fact that my yellow was empty. So, because the yellow was empty, I had to improvise for my Pooh Bear and use the light yellow. I would have loved to use the darker yellow, but the light yellow worked out fine. And again, with this pin, I used too many layers. There were too many layers on this pin, and it really, really fluffed up at the end after the oven. So that's not great. You can't really see his right eye after I put it in the oven, but that's just how it is. But I do really like him, and I do really like his face, so I am overall happy with this pin. And also with Piglet, I decided to not use black for the outlines, but just use two kinds of pink, and I do think it works, but it does look a little bit weird because Pooh Bear has black outlines, but then Piglet does not have black outlines, but I do think it works. What do you think? Next up is Appa, and I tried to get as close as possible to the original color palette, but I have limited amounts of colors, so I did try my best to get it right, and I do think that it turned out fine. I love his little horns, and I'm really happy with how the little arrow turned out on his head and how the little flews around his eyes, like his fur, turned out. So in the end, I am happy with how the spin turned out, and I know that the eyes are a little bit crooked, but who cares? It's Appa. For the koala, I used gray to color him in for his fur, and then beige for his little tummy and his ears, and I used pink for his little cheeks, and then black to outline him. And I think that it turned out great with the color choice. I do think that it looks like a koala. At least I hope that it looks like a koala. So let me know what you think. But I don't know, I really love his tail, and I'm happy with how this pin turned out, but the tree stump looks kind of weird. I don't know how I could have improved that, but it just looks a little bit weird to me. And next up is the Heart Pride pin, and again I am changing between colors so that there would be space between them so that it could dry and I could move on to the next one, and then I could wait until the paint was dry and be sure that the paint wouldn't mix together. And now for the paint palette, I don't know how I messed that up, but I miscounted how many Posca paint pens I had to make the rainbow, and I had an extra spot on my paint palette that I drew, so I just used white to fill it in instead, because my rainbow wasn't complete otherwise. Otherwise I would have another empty spot, so I used white to fill it in. And my blobs do kind of look weird, but I'm okay with them. I think they look okay. They look a little bit weird, but not weird enough, so that's fine. And then I have place for one more pin on this sheet of shrink plastic, and that it will be for the bee. I started off with the yellow for his stripes and on his head, and then I used light blue for his wings because I didn't know how I would otherwise make transparent wings. So I made them blue instead. And again with the outlining of this thing, I am still terrified of outlining and it didn't turn out perfect, but it turned out just alright. So I'm happy with them. I think my bee looks a little cute in the end, so I don't know, I'm happy with this pin. And last but certainly not least, I drew the dinosaur. And I struggled a lot with this pin because it has a lot of details, at least I think for me, to fill in, and I was just going over it again and again, trying to fill in all the little gaps that I left, because again, I had to outline this pin, which was just great. But I do think that it turned out fine, but it was just difficult getting all in the little crooks and crannies of this drawing, trying to fill in every single thing perfectly. But I don't know, I think he looks adorable in the end, so I don't know, just like roar. I really love this pin and I really love how it turned out. Okay, so I have finished painting them and I'm really happy with them. They turned out exactly the way I wanted, except for the Harry Potter one. The circle is wonky, but it doesn't matter. And I've cut them off screen because if I were to cut them on screen, I would literally have been like this close to my face and like with the scissors like this, and you wouldn't have been able to see anything. So I did it quickly off screen. And when I say quickly, I mean like I took an hour. But they turned out exactly how I wanted and I'm really happy with them. So now the next step is putting them in the oven. And I'm also gonna do that off screen because my oven is dirty. So I'm sorry. So I will see you after it. You guys, let me show you how absolutely adorable they've become after they've been in the oven. Look at that, they are so tiny and so adorable. I love them so much. Look at Baymax. Oh my gosh, I am so happy with them, like, oh god. The only thing that I didn't think about is this one. It is a clear one. I didn't put any white behind it. So if I put a pin behind it, you will be able to see it. So I don't quite know yet what I'm going to do with that. Maybe I'll paint it white or maybe I'll just leave it. I don't know yet. But all the other ones are amazing. I am so happy with them. Okay, so I have laid out all my pins on this scrap piece of paper that I can use as a background that can get dirty. And I'm going to be using Podge to use as a sealer for these pins because somebody said that it works, so I'm gonna try it. I've never done this on Posca Pens before. I don't know if it will work on colored pencils. I haven't tried that, but I'm gonna use it today and hopefully this works. So let's get started. And the Podge did work just fine for sealing this. I'm really happy with how they turned out. The Podge worked great, nothing smudged, which I'm really happy about because with my previous sealer it did smudge. So this is just fantastic to know that this doesn't smudge. And I don't recommend this as a final finishing because you can see the streaks of Podge. I would suggest using something other on top of it, like I used in my previous video, the Dimensional Magic, also from Podge, because that works great. But I'm going to be using something different now, which is UV resin. If you don't know what UV resin is, it's kind of like a liquid, and when you put it under a UV light or direct sunlight, it will turn out in a hard plastic, which is really handy for like sealing things or like making jewelry and stuff or making charms. And I've seen loads of people use it for really cool things, and I'm going to be using it for sealing my pins and like giving it a nice dome shape so that it will actually look kind of professional at the end. At least I hope so. Okay, they're all done, and now I'm going to wait until they're dry and then it is time for resin. So I have laid down my silicone mat, which is going to become very handy because all the pins won't slide off. the mat and they will like stick to it, so I can just do this and it will be fine. I have plugged in my UV lamp and the annoying part of it is that, oh, it turns on. That's not the annoying part. The annoying part of this lamp is that it doesn't have a button. So the only way that I will be able to turn it on is if I use this, my eraser. If I place an eraser right here, I can turn the lamp on. Otherwise, if the eraser is out, the lamp won't turn on. So that's going to be fun. So this is what I'm going to be using. I'm going to use the silicone mat, my lamp, the UV resin, my stir stick for if I have any bubbles, and if that doesn't help with removing the bubbles, I have a lighter. And that way will also remove bubbles, but obviously don't hold it too close to the resin, otherwise I can burn it. So let's get started. And now that the resin is done, it is the final step of this project, which is putting the pin backings onto these things so that they become actual pins. And I'm using again E6000 glue because that's the only glue that has worked so far, which is great. And I'm really happy with how strong the bond is. Not one of my pins has come loose with the E6000 bond over time, so I'm really happy with this one. But again, if you have any other suggestions on any other glue that I could use, I would really like to know, because alternatives are always welcome. So let me know if you know any alternatives for this. But yeah, I'm just carefully placing every single pin backing onto these pins to make sure that they are in center and stuff. And then I'm letting them dry and the pins will be done. So here is how they turned out. I am so happy with them. I absolutely love how they look. I am so glad that I put a white layer behind this one. I think that it makes the pin a little bit better because you can't really see the pin backing behind it, so that's good. Ooh. But I'm so happy with them. But I do have one question, and you can really see it on Baymax, and that is, how do I get the bubbles out of UV resin? Because I didn't think that there were any bubbles when I put the resin on, but after I put it out of the lamp, I realized that it has many bubbles. So if you know how to prevent that, please let me know, because I would really like to know that. But otherwise, I am really happy with them. I think they look great. Baymax and Appa are definitely my favorite ones, and I'm so happy with them. So if you like this video, please leave it a like, and if you liked me, please consider subscribing to me. Thank you so much for watching. My social media will be down in the description below, and if you have any suggestions on other pins, also let me know in the comments. I would really love to know your suggestions. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope I will see you in the next video. Bye!